So, and we are live. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Episode Club. And today we're going to be talking about Curse again, but we're going to be talking about episodes 5, The Joining, and episode 6, Festa and Moreii. And joining me today is Erin, aka Faye Fire, but we also have a special guest, Mandy. So whoever wants to introduce themselves, just go right ahead.
Hey guys, you know me. Faye Fire, Erin, and other various names. My girl has no name. But it's nice to see you all again. And I'm excited that Mandy's here with us tonight. Mandolin Way.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me on, Katrin C. And you can usually find me on Faye Fire with Erin. It's great to be here.
Yes. Yeah, we got somebody, we got Mandy here today, and it's gonna be a good time. Just, a little change up from the last couple weeks of just me and Erin just kind of talking about this, and it's always to have a nice perspective. But before we get started, Mandy, did you come at this from me, where you didn't really know anything about the show, or did you read a little bit of the books, or do you know anything about kind of this part of sort of history with Nimue and Lancelot and King Arthur?
Yeah, actually, we all grew up with the Merlin and the theme of King Arthur, and I know quite a bit about Arthurian lore. I wouldn't call myself an expert by any means, but I am down for all of this, and I'm down for where they're taking it and what we're going to see more in the show. I like the adaptation a lot, and I'm excited to see. It's a lot different than everything that we're used to, but I feel many elements that they pull in from many of the stories and the lore we see from different countries as well, because it's a little different. Otherwise, I'm okay with it, I would say.
Yeah, no, it's just to get cause kind of a nice perspective, because I know not everybody, obviously, I'm coming into this pretty much blind. Of course I know the names of all these characters, but just to kind of jump in with this is kind of nice, and to have another perspective as well. So overall, what did we think about these two episodes, episode 5 and episode 6?
Episode 5 is kind of a little bit of a filler episode, I think. Well, actually, both of them just have a ton of information. We meet some new characters that are significant to the story, and just there's a lot of, it's happening. It's all really fast, but it is a little bit of a filler episode. They're hanging out at Nemo's and that kind of thing, but you do gain a lot of information, so I rather enjoyed it. Episode 6 is I think it's my favorite in the season. It was the one I was definitely waiting for the most from the book, so I think they did a great job, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
So I think I like episode 6 because it's a lot of information and it's fun, but I kind of like the building up to it in episode 5 personally, and I like the kind of mystery that leaves you at the end. It makes you want more. You're kind of, what went on with Merlin, and why is this happening? And you want that backstory of his druid life and his life, perhaps with Lenore. We'll see. And as we discuss later on, we'll get into it more. But I love them. I am totally for these episodes. I think these are some of the best episodes of the series, and especially 6 too, because you really get into what the series is about.
Yeah, kind of. They both, because we had, well, again, because it's the first season, they kind of have to give you those info dumps, especially coming from with the show being a take on, we're talking about, Arthurian lore, so they kind of have to give you a lot of information, plus they also have to build upon the story that they've already been developing, especially when it comes to Nimue and Arthur, and the story with the Red Paladins, and especially in episode 5, a lot of more Pym's storyline and kind of bringing in the Vikings kind of esque elements as well. But before we get into all of that shenanigans, we have some people who've joined us in the chat. We have Sasuke, who showed up, but she didn't watch these episodes, so she had to leave. We also have OTDA, Kaci from House Lorebridge, someone named Faye Fire. I don't know who she is, but I think she's also on the panel today, as well as Mandolin, and Santivia Major is also here today. And yeah, so if you guys have any, McKay is also here, so if you guys have any questions for us, just let us know. Just throw them out there and we'll be happy to talk about them. So, episode 5, The Joining, starts off with Pym's storyline, and we get a lot more about, we'll call them the Vikings, because that's kind of what they are. And we get introduced to Cumber, the Ice King, and kind of that whole storyline of essentially them becoming kind of key players, at least for these couple of episodes, because again, they're new characters that we're getting introduced to, but B, it's kind of like a secondary, or like the main, I guess, love interest for Pym, even though she has the one on the side from the last couple of episodes. So what did you think about like Pym's storyline overall for episode 5?
I love Pym. Pym is, I mean, she's one of my favorite characters. I think that they did a really, really great job at giving her the comedy relief character, because I know just compared to the book, she does not have very many lines, as she did in the show. And she also gets killed off, right? Or taken, yeah, she's...
It's like really unclear, but we basically lose track of her when they get attacked in Duden, so that's kind of the end of her storyline in the book. She could be alive, but she might be dead.
I mean, but just this whole... she's so whimsical, and with her facial expressions, and just, you know, she doesn't have to say much, but her face tells you everything you need to know about this character. And it's great because they give her this, you know, put her in a situation where she has to pretend to be a healer and make it work. And then during this, she falls in love, and she kind of has this cool little love story on the side that is just so sweet and romantic. And I mean, I'm the Viking character. The way he comes to her and says, you know, hey, cigar protects me, but if the only way I get to see you is through getting hurt, then maybe I'll take it off. Maybe I'll take off my charm. It was just a great, you know, little side story to add interest to the main story.
You know, and I think we can all agree that, like, the Pym and Doff love story is way better than Nimue and Arthur. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Like, come on.
Less drama for sure. No drama. It's very, like, okay, because I feel like that story is they're running to each other, whereas Nimue and Arthur are running against each other. They're always running away from each other, some sort of reason. For drama, why we can't be together.
Yeah.
And we do get that in this episode too, but yeah, like Pym and the Viking, they're just so cute. Like, I love them, and Pym is just like a deer in the headlights, but she's, you know, she's like coming, it's like they're coming at her at all angles. She's like, I'm not Faye, but I'm a healer. Well, maybe I am Faye. Like, she's like, I don't know what's the right answer here. It's so cute to like watch her kind of navigating that. But then, you know, she has like, I mean, the Sky Folk kind of have those natural like healer, like that's kind of their skill. So, even though she doesn't really know anything, we know from I think it was episode 3, Nimue says that Pym's the one that taught her that remedy that she used on on the Red Paladin that worked. So she's, you know, she knows a little bit. I mean, maybe pulling arrows out of guys isn't like.
Well, like we discussed last week, she's the Samwell Tarly of Cursed, because it's like falling in love with a person you're not supposed to fall in love with. Doff. It's like, and then it's like reading about how to heal, but not actually being able to do it themselves. Maybe, again, that's her end arc, is that she finally harnesses the power of being a healer.
Yeah.
And what I think about, like, when I was watching these these episodes, like, because I watched it, I like skimmed through this just before this actually, and what I really liked about it is how they were able to portray the Vikings, but like in such a way where it still matched very much the theme of the show and didn't go like the extreme route, like the History Channel way of portraying the Vikings. Like it fit the costuming of the show rather than just like make it more, not like that it was not accurate, but it's like more of on a like a cursed, like it, you could tell that it was more of like a cursed styling of Vikings. But I feel like it was also very well done. Of course, there was the very beginning of the scene where they show pretty brutal violence, like a person gets beheaded, of course. But it was put in such a way where you could feel like if you don't really know the Viking culture a lot, like you could tell, of course, there's the head male, but then there's also like the shield maiden, which kind of, especially in the antagonizing of Pym, like specifically more or less asks her if she's a healer or not, which very much it also showcases that there is the strong women, which, because I was kind of iffy about if they were going to show that side of the Vikings.
She's a badass. She's like, I think she might be the first one that swears like on the show. I could be wrong about that, but she straight up calls Pym a bitch. And I just like love that. Like, she's just cool. I love that actress. She's been in a couple other things that I really liked. And actually, I'll tell you guys, I used one of her roles that she did. I modeled her I used her accent to try and do my crappy Quape accent in one of my Braavosi broadcast videos. So we can thank Bella Dane for my half-assed accent that she also did a pretty crappy job at too, but that's why I love her. But yeah, she does really awesome at it's interesting because, like you were saying, like they make it where there's a strong female, but also if you're gonna be like a Viking captain, you have to be a pretty badass woman to like get these men to follow you. So she's trying as hard as she can to like be that really strong female, and you can even tell in the way she talks, like she just sounds like beastly. I love her. I love her. She's great.
Yeah, she's not taking no prisoners, and she's not taking no shit.
No.
And
got no problem killing Pym if she needs to.
She's so strong though, and I love her character as well, because when we're introduced to it, initially we're not quite sure why or what, but then we start to see, oh, okay, she's here because she's against, the other king, and so we get introduced to this whole other Viking aspect that gives us a back and forth between their rulers and kings, and we know that neither one of them want to really actually work with Uther Pendragon or the Red Paladins. Their whole main goal is to kill them, but at the end of the day, they're doing what they have to do. So you see all of them, forging these bonds inside, and we see all these different connections being made, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes, because we're led on into one direction, but like then towards the end of the season, it kind of takes a twist. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of rebuttal in season 2 on a lot of these actions that are made in these episodes.
Yes.
Yeah, and the other part of Cumber showing up, besides we realize there's like warring factions among the Viking people. You know, there's the Red Spear versus Cumber, but also the reason Cumber's even there, or well, he was there already, but the reason he's like invading down yonder is because he is saying that he's the true Pendragon heir. So then now we have a whole other kind of, you know, political story kind of going on. And then they cut to, you know, Uther, like, what the heck, because he gets a letter from the guys that basically Cumber and his people attack, saying that, yeah, he's the true Pendragon heir, and that Uther is, you know, he's fake or whatever. I can't think of the right word. And he's like gone to his mother, and he's like, what even is this, you know, kind of thing. But his mother, you know, she's got a secret too. So that's a huge part of this episode, with like the story of the midwife and all of that kind of coming into play. So
yeah,
kind of, yeah,
royalty.
Like
there's always secrets involved with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's kind of an interesting. I mean, I guess we'll just kind of skip ahead a little bit because, well, basically the mother advises Uther to, you know, you should kill Merlin because he's the reason that the Vikings are invading, even though like he's not. I think it's just like an excuse, right? Yeah. And also anyway, so then they try and kill Merlin, but thankfully there's an intervening, and then later Merlin goes to her and he tells the story of the midwife, which is basically the story that he's like, oh, I know a guy kind of thing. But it's a story about when a queen was giving birth, and her husband, the king, had died while she was pregnant. So the baby she was carrying was the heir to the kingdom. And unfortunately, she had a stillborn baby, and what was it? So the midwife went, and she knew of a peasant woman who had recently had a baby boy. So she went and basically bought the baby, and the queen, you know, gave her a bunch of gold, and then the woman, you know, the mother mysteriously died within a few days, and the only person basically left who could potentially know the story was the midwife, who miraculously vanished and disappeared. And
of course,
you know, exactly. It's speculated on what might have happened to her, but you know, and the queen's like, oh well, she probably ended up dead, just like the mother of that poor baby. And you know, Merlin basically is like, or I might have her in my protection. Peace out. And you know, and he just kind of dips out from there. So that kind of, again, opens up this whole other like intrigue story going on within the story of like, well, what's going on with Uther? You know, he's kind of weird anyways, but also in this episode he starts to kind of step up and like make some moves himself. Like when he arrests Merlin, you know, he's starting to really think for himself, and Merlin even acknowledges that he's not stupid, and Uther's not. He's not stupid. He's not historically a stupid character throughout Arthurian lore. He's a good and capable king. So he hasn't really been given the opportunity to like flourish and really think for himself without really biased people, you know, kind of pressuring him from one direction or the other, whether it's his mom or Merlin being just kind of a drunk and crappy advisor. You know, he's just now kind of starting to be like, I need to think for myself, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that Uther in this episode and throughout the season, you know, he is exactly what you said. He's coming into character, and we're introduced to an Uther that we're not used to, and where he's going to find it. And a lot of people are giving him, you know, they do not like him, and that's supposed to be that way. You know, I think that they were trying to give him like kind of that Joffrey character. He's rich, he's entitled, and he doesn't know anything about anything. Like, you can see that his mother's from the tower, running the kingdom, running everything, and, you know, manipulating behind the scenes. So Uther's starting to find this out, and then he he's finding out that he's not even truly the king.
Yeah.
So all of his life is a lie, and he's going through that inner turmoil too. You know, he is, let's just face it and say it, a brat, and he doesn't know any better, and he's learning, and he's trying to step up and prove to people, and not just people but himself as well, that he deserves this, you know, he deserves this spot, and he doesn't want to lose it, and he's going to do everything in his possibility, and his, you know, that's possible to keep his position as king. And I think that the actor did a really, really great job in showing that. And I think that we have to remember that this is, you know, 20 years or so before the normal storyline that we see in Arthurian lore of Uther Pendragon, because usually he's the father of King Arthur, and that's kind of the storyline how it goes. So that, you know, brings, I have a theory that the Arthur that we're introduced to is going to actually he's not King Arthur, he's just an Arthur, and he will influence somehow Uther and maybe be on Uther's side, and King Arthur will be named after him. That's kind of a theory that I have working, but yeah, he's definitely a character that you're just like, man, what's gonna happen with him? And I'm excited to see what they do with him. He goes through the brattiness and kind of like, man, I want what I want, and I want it now. And you see that with Merlin, because he's like, he locks Merlin in a cell, and then he says, Merlin, you better have it by tonight or tomorrow morning or you're dead. And then that's what Merlin's like, what? How can I even do that? How can I make anything happen or get you the sword while I'm locked in a tower? And Uther doesn't care. He's like, just give it to me. I want it when I want. And otherwise you die. And I mean, that's kind of what you get from in the beginning, but then you see throughout the storyline that he's starting to realize, okay, people are more valuable to me alive, and he's starting to play a bigger, better game. So you're going to see him get put on his big boy pants, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah, like, especially when it comes to gaining the background story of Uther, which is kind of basically what the episode is for him, because we've kind of gotten pretty much every key character's background story to some degree. And Uther is kind of the only one that remains. So it was nice that they kind of fleshed that out for us, and kind of gave us that thing of like how, well, it's like, well, you're technically royal by everybody else's standards, but like biologically or by blood, you're not really royal, which is quite a interesting thing that they've got going on. And it makes it even more vital that he continues to protect the throne, and more than likely will be influenced by someone or somebody in the future, because if you gotta keep it, or else you're next on the chopping block. And the whole thing with like Merlin as well, it's kind of that shock and awe of, oh, they might actually like get rid of him, because at this point Merlin's brought blood rain to the kingdom, and now apparently he's brought Vikings to their shores. So it's like he's getting all of these strikes against him. Probably beforehand there was many strikes that were against him, and his mother's like, at this point he's no use to us anymore, and he keeps messing up, so might as well get rid of him. But of course Nimue pretty much saves the day with having her note show up, and it's like that the sword of power is eventually showing up, but it's not right now. And
you know, that was a great scene too, and that's like a common thing you see in Arthurian lore, and I can't pinpoint, it's probably in the Prophecy of Merlin somewhere, but you do see it. There's a scene like that in King Arthur and the one that was done by Guy Ritchie, and then there's another scene like that in King Arthur from 2004. Like, that's a common thing with the bird flying and kind of interrupting the scene. So I'm glad that they kind of threw that in there too.
Yeah, because
there's lots of like animal symbolism in the story. That's like a huge part of. That was like a huge part of the Once and Future Kings. That story really utilized like the animal symbolism. and a lot. That's like the more modern, like the most modern kind of classic Arthurian, I guess you might say, or most referred to.
It's like a just-in-time Raven just showed up. But yeah, like when it comes to, of course, if they had killed off Merlin in the 5th episode, I don't think many people would probably, like, unless they were really, like, I could see where what like a lot of the critique is coming from in terms of this show, and with Gustav being one of the main characters that draws in the audience besides Daniel Sharman and Katherine Langford, to pull out Merlin like this early in the series would be pretty detrimental. So, and of course you gotta have the moment of the will they won't they moment, but of course it's not they, because you gotta keep Merlin around for at least until the end of season 2. Like, come on. But for much longer.
Also, like, let's not even pretend like that's not example. Like, well, that one's like a mild example, but Merlin's got that heavy plot armor.
Exactly.
For sure. Like, he escaped death a few times. That's,
exactly.
Questionable, but hey, we don't want to lose Merlin, okay? No matter what, do not take that man from me, okay?
Yeah, you can't get rid of Merlin right away. Like, you barely even know him, so why get rid of him as fast? This is not Game of Thrones, people. We can't get rid of the main, like, the man that has like a lot of potential to go somewhere, and just get rid of him in like the middle of the season.
Yeah, let's face it, he's the star.
Exactly.
He's so good. I mean, Gustav Skarsgård just blows this part out of the water, and he is the perfect Merlin in my mind. So that's how I feel.
I agree.
Yeah. Again. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was seeing Shanti said something about she in the chat. I keep thinking Arthur doesn't have a dad, and what if Uther doesn't have a son? And I think that's an interesting thing too. There's different, like, I've been watching and caught up on the BBC also, and then there's different storylines with that. Arthur, or usually Uther Pendragon ends up being Morgana's father in that one as well, and Morgana and Arthur are traditionally brother and sister in most of those storylines, I think. Or most that I can recall, because I mean there's so many different lines and there are a few different things, but I think that's a cool idea that she put, that he could make Arthur his heir. I like, we can see where that goes, because this is a little different than normal storyline for sure. We don't know where they're going to take it yet or what direction, and it's kind of hard to make major theories yet, but you could.
Ooh, well, no, we could actually for my theory that I have for Uther and Sister Igraine. Okay, so I have a theory. I have a video, but I have a theory that they're going to end up together, because like Uther and Igraine is a huge, part of Arthurian lore. They're usually Arthur's parents, and they have kind of this weird love story. I mean, sometimes it's a little crazy. Yeah, but
that was what I was thinking too. Is that they were gonna make they'll have twins again, or they'll have brother and sister, and they'll name them after Morgana and Arthur.
Well, that could happen.
Morgana will make, because Morgana is Igraine. So let's just.
Yeah.
So for the people who don't know, Morgana and Sister Igraine are the same person. So if they end up together, and Uther needs another sorceress, because we see Morgana having that power, maybe Uther will have her as a sorceress, and then Arthur go to Morgana's side, because that's his sister. He wants to support Morgana in any way possible, and Uther could fall in love with Morgana, and they could have that heir. They could have that baby, as you're saying. Or it could be a magically created being, because Morgana.
Arthurian. That's typical in Arthurian lore. But even that, if they end up together, like Arthur could kind of technically be in line to be heir, even if they just get married. That would put Arthur potentially kind of in line, because if they don't have an heir, if they don't have a child together, then if something happens to Uther, then Igraine would be queen, just like, because we see that it's that kind of system, like, that there can be a queen in place, like Uther's mother was, without, until there's an heir. So if Igraine or Morgana is the queen, and if something happened to Uther, then wouldn't Arthur technically kind of be her heir? Because that's her brother. So, I don't know.
Yeah, because
interesting.
Yeah, because it would probably, by like some standards, it would go by the child of the couple, and then it would be the sibling next. So that would make some sort of sense. That's how typically it usually goes. It's the heir of the royalty, and then the siblings of the heir, like the king or the queen, pretty much. More or less the king, but because it's obviously he doesn't have siblings, it would just go to the next one.
And what a queen Morgana would make, because we see her character here, especially with the letters that she's writing. She's like, or we shall spill all of the Red Paladin's blood throughout the kingdom. I mean,
she's like, I love that part.
She's so demanding. She's so, like, in your face. She is also, she realizes that, hey, with this sword can grant you the audience, which we see, like, foreshadowed from the first or couple episodes. It's going to bring you the audience with the king. It's going to give you the magical powers you deserve, and you can save the Fae. And I think that is also part of Morgana's spiel. Like, she wants to save the Fae too. She wants to help with her people, and she wants to help, bring justice and the right things to the crown and the kingdom. So I think that, Uther is used to strong women leading his life, like his mother. So we could see that following suit in his love life. I mean, it makes sense, especially with a man like Uther.
Well, and I mean, she could potentially have like a playing chip. She's also got this motivation too, because like, things that happen later, I won't spoil it, but that'll be for next week. But things that her story evolves on its own, and it's one of like seeking power, basically. So I don't know. There's definitely room for all of this, and I hope it happens, honestly, because she's smart, she's motivated, and she's capable, and it fits with, like, your typical, like, Morgana storyline. So
yeah, that worked. Speaking of Morgana and Arthur, we might as well talk about, like, that whole storyline of how pretty much, like, they're all together, or at least Morgana, Arthur, and Nimue, they're all, like, together in, like, near the beginning-ish of the episode, or beginning part of their storyline. And of course Nimue and Morgana have, like, sort of like this, not argument, but it's like this discussion about Arthur and whether if Nimue is attracted to Arthur in, like, a romantic sense. And it's like, it's always that traditional thing of, like, no, I don't like him, but maybe, like, in another time, blah blah blah. And that pretty much, it's like there's that realization eventually that comes out, but she also, again, needs to have somebody by her side that she can trust, because the Red Paladins are out there, and to have a capable person like Arthur too, like, alongside her, they make, like, the team. You can't separate them again, because they already were separated the last 2 episodes. And of course, in typical TV show fashion, we get kind of their relationship blossom or go to another level in this episode, where they, like, kind of their true emotions start to come out about one another. So what do we think about this? Or is it, and then we can talk about the other stuff after. My eye waters. Woo.
Well, that was a lot of stuff, but the pool scene, with Arthur and Nimue is like,
booty!
yeah, we get to see the movie. That was, like, the best part of it, I suppose. But you know, it was kind of cheesy. He's like, hey, let's get naked in a pool together, and then you try and kiss me, and then I'm like, no, let's not kiss. Like, what is this? Okay, you would have kissed her. Anyways,
Why the drama? Why the drama?
It's so much drama. It's painful drama. Like, come on, just hit it. But yeah, so that was a little bit much, but you know, it was necessary. I'm sure the teenagers watching the show loved that scene. I didn't need it, but it was like that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this scene, I feel the same. It was just, I can't, no, because, you know, I'm going to hurt you, Nimue, and me being around you, and I'm going to run away, and, you know, it's more running away. And you see this dynamic with Arthur and Nimue. They're always running away from something or each other, and they kind of flip-flop and reverse on their arcs. Like, they're doing kind of the same storyline, just a little different. And I saw their characters being similar with that, like, I can't be with you, but I do. But then they finally are deciding in this character that, or hey, are you? And Nimue says to him, "Are you just searching, or are you searching for that night to be something to find someplace to fit in, or are you searching, or are you sure you're not just running away?" And it kind of gets him, and so then they finally get this moment after the hot tub scene where she invites him to be her date at the wedding, and they get this moment of just them, which is really nice. And he finally comes to this realization, like, hey, you know, maybe I'm supposed to be your knight, maybe I'm supposed to be your man. And finally I'm like, yes, finally, like, get together.
Exactly. But again, like we talked about last week, there's a bunch of people online that are like, with the Arthur and Nimue. They're all about the Weeping Monk and Nimue to be together. And I'm just like, okay. Like, that makes sense. But, again,
I'm for that too, but, you know, right now the story's gotta unfold. We gotta tell it, and we gotta have some more backup. Like, the Weeping Monk, you know, we find out his real name later on, but you know, that leaves us all open into all the speculation for season 2, which we'll see. We'll see what season 2 brings us.
Exactly.
Yeah, they have to kind of give us this whole cheesy love story, but let's not forget what my girl Morgana said in this episode. You don't got time for a man. You don't even need to deal with all of that. So you don't have time for any man. You're the wolf blood witch. You're too important. So we don't have time for little girl crushes anymore. Like, I love Morgana. Probably a Capricorn.
Yeah, you just kind of, it's kind of showing, like, of course there was going to be that moment between the two of them because, well, the other moments haven't happened yet, so they're kind of bringing that to the forefront as well. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you knew that was gonna happen. It was just when it of course happened, some people are like, yeah, but other people are like, this is bound to happen anyway. But yeah,
it's really, you know, it's kind of like the Arthur and Nimue thing is kind of, well, I think I said this before, it kind of gives me the vibe of like Jon and Daenerys, where it was almost like a forced romance, but the reason that it felt forced like that was because it was like destined to be, you know, destined to be doomed kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that that's definitely in play. You know, if you know a little bit about Arthur and Laura, you know, who Arthur ends up being married to and, you know, kind of having as his queen kind of thing. And even though this is a different story, I think things like that, those are like major points that have to be hit on. So
yeah, like,
but Nimue won't like that, and Nimue is usually like an angry character, so I'm ready for that too.
Yeah, like we talked about before, the whole Jon and Daenerys situation being kind of not closely tied, but kind of being like pushed together, like Nimue and Arthur kind of being pushed together. Like, I kind of have continued to think about how pretty much, well, we can talk about this another time, but I've pretty much come to the belief that John was basically playing two characters in season 8. Like, he was playing Fagon and he was playing himself half the time, so the fact that was happening.
He came back
makes
from the
sense.
dead of Fagon.
Yeah. Literally. And he was also playing out Stannis's character in season 6, pretty much, for like a little bit. But anyway, regardless of that fact.
Also, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say also with their dynamic, we see right now they're getting happy and they're just figuring it out, but like we see him seeing her consumed by the sword, and so we see her going dark in this kind of aspect, the way Dany did go dark as well after for different reasons, but we're gonna have him because he's fighting, they're both fighting with this, like, I don't fit in, where do I fit in? And we're going to see him starting to feel honorable fighting for her, but then once she starts to be consumed by the darkness, he is not so much for it. Like, he reminds her that you need to be honorable, you need to do the right thing, and what's going to happen is the emotion going to build up and get the best of her, because that's a lot of her character is about, is that her emotions take over. And I see that following suit later on as well, like, for sure. And
Merlin
and he's going to confront her.
I think, one thing about Arthur, like, in general as a character is he doesn't want war. Like, he'll go to war. It's like, very Jon Snow, and even kind of like Rhaegar. Like, they can fight, but they don't want to fight, kind of thing. So, like, they'll go and take care of it, but they're not looking for war. And that's very much part of Arthur's character. And you kind of start to see that in these episodes, too, because there's, like, that scene with the Fae when they kind of get into the fight when they run out of food. And Arthur's the first one in there, like, breaking up the fight, and he's like, look, we got to keep it peaceful. We're living in close quarters. And then again, like, when they go out, he puts trust in that young boy, Magwan, which, by the way, he was also on Harlot as I don't know if you caught that, Kennedy, but I know. I know.
I did.
Thinking about that.
I did,
I was like, wait a second. I missed that show. I don't think it's coming back anymore, though.
Charlotte forever.
I know.
It died with Charlotte. Oh
no, I died with Charlotte for sure.
Well,
anyway,
I died with part of me. Yeah. But anyways, So he puts his trust in his men, and he doesn't want. He's not looking for war. Like, even when they're going to fight the Paladins, even though he and Gawain kind of have that, like, tension, that, like, man tension between them, he's not going to let Gawain just, like, walk, into his death, He's like, no, look, we need to, like, think about this, we need to all plan this and go together and take care of each other and have each other's back. So it's like, he's not looking for war, he's not looking for a fight, and, like, Arthur historically just, wants peace. So I think that we're going to see more and more of that with him. Like, while he's proved he's a capable fighter, that's not all that it takes to like have honor. So the whole honor, searching for honor. Yeah,
because they like to say honor is in only battlefields and titles, but it's in much more than that. Because everybody has their own form of honor, just like how we talked about, was it last week? With the aunt, where she talks about how the Lord was her husband was talking about with dying with honor and all of this stuff with honor, but it's like, it's not just honor you have to worry about, it's everything else that comes with it as well. And exactly, like the whole Nimue and Arthur and that whole storyline, of course it stems upon being honorable and doing the right thing, which they're going to do. It's part of the steps of the characters that they're going to be taking. It's just getting to that point. And of course, once inevitably, whether it's in another season or not, when Arthur becomes his full potential, where he becomes probably the knight and then the eventual king that he wants to be. Then that's when the kind of the full arc of honor is bestowed upon him, pretty much. It's just right now. It's just right now. He's just struggling with it a little bit because, you know, coming from a Meagle background, sometimes it doesn't always get you that far that fast. You gotta take the baby steps to get there. Well, just like Pod.
He's on the right path, like helping these people, and you know, if he continues to do, you know, make the right choices and help the Fae and help, like, I think that he's, you know, he can gain his honor and that kind of thing. I hope that, like, you know, I know that there's kind of it's a little touch and go. Like, we haven't heard if there's going to be season 2. I mean, I think there is. I'm not.
More than likely. I think so.
Yeah. And I hope that we get the chance to, like, see more of that. And I think that they're probably getting enough feedback on that subject in particular. Like, Arthur's kind of, it's hard to, like, get a good grasp on, like, his character right now, because he's been doing all these dishonorable things, but Nimue just keeps forgiving him, you know? She's like, no, it's all good. No, let's make out. No, let's, like, take a naked bath, you know? But, like, last episode, he stole her freaking sword. So, like, I don't know.
It's hormones. Teenage hormones.
Yeah, exactly. Like, girl, can't be thinking with that. So, that's, again, you know, Morgana trying to tell her that, you know, you need to focus. Don't think about boys. Don't get distracted by boys. They're only gonna, you know, be your downfall. So.
Exactly. Oh,
yeah.
man.
Do you guys want to talk about how Nimue? This scene where, like, finally Arthur and Nimue are loving on each other, and, like, he declares his love, then instantly, whoops, sorry, forget about you, the Green Knight is here.
Yeah.
The Green Knight, and then you find him, and we are introduced that the Green Knight is Gwaine, and he's like, thank you for taking care of my Nimue. And so here we are, another battle with Arthur internally.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of, that scene to me was like, oh gosh, poor Arthur.
I love their whole, like, thing, even into the next episode. Well, even, like, their whole dynamic throughout the show is so funny, because it's such, like, a stick swinging contest, you know? Like, they're, like, especially in that scene, I think it's, like, the beginning scene in episode 6 where, you know, Nimue's gonna go, and she basically ends up asking Kaci, because the boys are, like, fighting, like, I'll take her, no, I'll take her, no, I'll take her. Finally, she's like, hey, Kaci can take me, and she, like, takes her hand, and they just walk out together, and then the boys are like, and they turn to each other, and then they just turn away. I just love that. It was so
we're definitely seeing that flip a lot in a lot of series right now, where the girls are becoming, like, the main warrior type characters. Like, they did it in Fort Salem, and I like that too, because, like, it, for example, just to compare, they have the military roles that are usually filled by men in tradition, are now becoming, you know, women parts, and women can do anything, and they're filling that badass role that, hey, you know, we can do anything you can do, I can do too. So I like that they did that, and they gave, you know, homage to that.
Yeah, it's almost like a little bit of, like, how they're kind of playing, especially the two, like, the male characters against one another, and more likely we'll do it in the future. It's kind of like how in, like, there's, like, of course, the teams, which reminds me so much of Twilight, and, like, the whole thing of, like, how it's like, I like you and all, but the next option over here is who I'm actually gonna, like, end up with. That's what it seems like. Yeah. Seems like it's going to lead down in terms of, like how Arthur is kind of pulling, like, a little bit, like, the Jacob persona for now, until, like, of course we get more of, because everybody's loving on the weeping monk, so it's like when that kind of becomes a real self-actualized or realized in more deeper thought. But who knows? It's like pulling that as well, and then, like you said, Mandy, it's having the women more or less be like, you two just bicker while you want, while I just like just let me have my sword and just keep walking. It's like it's kind of that fun.
They go from bickering to brothers, and it's just funny because they also, play into that, hey, you're human? Because that's one of the first things Gawain asks Arthur, like, oh, human? Yes. And then kind of like does this eye roll thing, as well as in the beginning of the episode, you see, Arthur, when Nimue wakes up, Arthur says, yeah, I'm not liked much here because I don't have horns or I'm not green. Yeah. And so you're feeling like that, that pull and tug on like, hey, we don't like you because you're different. But then they end up becoming brothers, which is, the story that we all love and the story we all love to promote with equality and, one love. Exactly. Anybody who knows me, I'm huge into one love, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're funny together. They're like, just, it's kind of interesting because you don't really also know what to expect from Nimue's relationship with Gawain too, because like they talk about him back in the first episode, so you know that he's kind of always been on Nimue's mind, and then of course like the way they interact when they see each other too is like, I'm sure Arthur's like, oh, okay, like when he doesn't realize that they haven't seen each other in years and years, like as far as like I was kind of thinking about it while I was watching that episode again today. I was like, she doesn't really explain to him that she hasn't seen this guy in years. Like as far as Arthur knows, he could have they could have been known each other when they were in Duden, and it could have just been like a matter of weeks since they've seen each other kind of thing. So it was just funny, their whole dynamic, and just boys. Anyway,
jealousy and all of that crap, because that's how that goes. It's usually, if it's usually a triangle or a square, there's usually one of...
Hey, it's boys and girls though. Like, come on, it's equal.
Well, and that's another thing too, like Gawain and Arthur both do this this thing to Nimue where they're like, oh, I will protect you, you need my protection kind of thing. And when Nimue shows Gawain the sword, he's like, well, you can give the sword to me. Like, she was going to have you give the sword to Merlin because she thought that he needed to protect you, but I'll protect you. You don't need to worry about it. She's like, I can protect myself. Like, she, these boys just keep trying to treat her like a damsel, and Lenore's already told us, like, Nimue's not a damsel. She is a warrior. So, I love it. So, I love Nimue.
Exactly. Like, that's how it's, just the funniness of that whole thing. And it's just the bickering. That's kind of it. You gotta have some form of comic relief. You can't be all lovey-dovey with them because they were fighting last episode, so you gotta have a little bit more tension with it.
And the Green Knight is like he's throughout Arthurian lore a lot, and he's like a mythological character. He's tied to like nature and that kind of thing. So Gawain's got like a lot of I guess implications along with his name and his title, and like Sontavia saying in the chat, Gawain is normally part of Arthur's family. He's like his nephew or his cousin or something like that. So and there's a story that's called Gawain and the Green Knight. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that's a great story that's been like adapted and readapted. So check, do some research on that. It's kind of fun. I sent Mandy a video actually the other day that was like a spoof retelling of Gawain and the Green Knight. Anyway, tra la la, off on a tangent.
Yeah, we'll share it on the Free Fire page.
Yeah, it was really funny, but he's a significant character in Arthurian lore. So to have him kind of show up right at this sort of like crux of Nimue and Arthur, like their relationship blossoming, because even when they meet, Nimue's like, he's my friend. I don't know. Like, we've been through
Yeah.
things. Like, I don't know. We just took a bath together. I don't know. Like, what are we?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, we haven't defined the relationship yet. It's like DTR, they haven't defined their relationship yet, and it's kind of it's always that awkward stage, especially when someone else is like interested, like in those like in you or in your like within the characters as well. It's just funny how they act.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys a question for
Go ahead.
fun. Do you see do we see Gwen having love interest later on? And if we do see Gwen, is it the same sex? Because I kind of got a little bit of vibes that he might have some relationship with another male, especially in this. You know, I know it's not traditional, but I would like for him to be gay. To be honest with you, I would love it if they made that character have some sort of, you know, affection to
He's just like
his
super
knight.
asexual. Like, that's
Yeah.
like what I was thinking. He's like super asexual, but he does have that story, that like tragic story about his friend that got killed by Father Cardin, and that he's like, that's the one that like sticks with him. So, you know, there is a lot of like homoerotic overtones throughout Arthurian lore too. So like, let's just go with it. He's gay. All right.
I would love that if they did that, because I mean, I don't know, I am bisexual and I love to support LGBT, and it would be so much fun and to have that in my common characters that you're not used to, and like, and seriously, just let me say that, like, for any character, you know, like growing up, it was still kind of taboo, and for any character that they made, you know, lesbian or bi, or it was always just like strong for me, and there weren't that many characters, and now we see a lot of characters like that because it's become more, you know, socially accepted, and it's, you know, it's okay now. But I just think that, you know, those strong characters that they do influence, like Sister Grain, for example, like, they're needed for young kids, especially like the targeted market for the cursed members, just to be able to be comfortable with themselves and to promote their sexuality the way they want to. And I love stuff like that because, you know, it just makes you powerful inside to see some of your favorite characters give you the hopes that you can be okay with coming out and being who you are.
Yeah, like it. Yeah, exactly, because it's like, it's gotten, of course, because there's the stereotypical like this and that. But we already kind of highlighted some aspects of the LGBTQ within, but they can totally add more to the storyline, of course, like within their secondary characters, even into moving into, well, they're more than likely going to shift some of these characters who were known as secondary characters into primary when they do move into season 2 as well, because, you know, you just gotta establish the core group and then ever evolve. So I think that, yeah, it's gonna, more than likely they'll probably do that, because they've already done a huge twist with this show in its entire premise as well, and they've also, because of how the actors that they have also picked for some of these roles as well, makes it already another shift in that as well, which is also nice.
For sure.
Let's see.
Didn't mean to trail off. I just wanted to say, because I think it's a very important topic.
Yeah, no, of course, because they've hinted at they've shown us some form of representation, but I feel like, of course, they can more definitely move forward as well with that as well, like in terms of establishing that, because it is important to share those voices and have, especially as well, if the actors are of that, to have almost like an own voices kind of thing where they portray their own things as well. Let's see. Yeah, we get obviously Gawain and Nimue talking about the adventure, but they also find out about what happened at the Abbey, and with the Red Paladin from the last episode, and that whole kind of thing where we're starting to get the connections of what obviously happened last episode, and that Morgana obviously finds out about Celia and what happened to that character. So we can kind of talk about the Red Paladin and that whole shenanigans, because that kind of ties in a little bit with Sister Iris and her crazy nature. Go ahead.
Girl is crazy. Oh my gosh, she was crazy. And
she is.
I mean, okay, well, she's like 11, and she is just holding on to Father Paladin's every word, and literally she burned them out, because in the last episode he talks about how they must be burnt out, and she found, you know, one obstruction, and then goodbye. And then we see, like, okay, this is a dangerous character, and it's crazy that they're making the villain an 11-year-old girl. I mean, I guess we haven't seen this before, but I don't know. Arya Stark isn't really considered a villain, but we have seen a little crazy murderous 11-year-old. So.
Yeah, I love that scene of her, like, going up to that group of guys, because it echoed Arya Stark
with the Brotherhood, almost, with the Brotherhood without banners.
Even remember that scene in, like, I don't even remember when she was like I think it was season 7 or season 8 maybe, but she went to it had Ed Sheeran.
Oh, the Lannister soldiers.
Yeah. And she just, like, you know, saunters up to them, and she's like, oh, I'm going to kill the queen, but it's, like, their queen that they fight for. And so, like, it was just totally kind of reminiscent of that scene, especially, like, the red, you know, the red cloaks, and then she had on her, like, little red shawl and stuff. But, yeah, she's like, you know, I want to be one of you, and they, like, kick her, and they're like, no, like, bring us the head of the Wolfblood Witch. Like, they're kind of just joking around, not thinking that she would ever do it, but this is Congress, so yeah. And then she's basically we see her next when she, like, killed a pig, a boar, which, you know, again, we talked about, that's, like, symbolic in Arthurian lore. So she kills a boar, and she's, like, cooking its head. Well, I don't know why she didn't cook its body, like, the head's gross, like, I don't know. Anyways, and then it's you know, kind of a throwback to that scene with the Weeping Monk, where basically the Fae are lured in, and then they tell her, you know, they'll take her back, and they take her back to Nemours, and so basically she integrates herself in with the Fae there, and you know, she realizes that Nimue is there, and she wants, you know, she's like, all right, I'm going to kill her, I'm going to get her head, and I'm going to be a paladin, you know. So, yeah, it's kind of, but there is that interesting scene where she first goes in, and the one Fae says, you smell funny, you know, this man blood smells funny. And I found that interesting on more than one level, because, number one, they know they're letting a man blood in, which, you know, they were all kind of, like, weird about with, like, with Arthur being there. Yes. They're cool with Morgana, it seems, because she's, you know, helping them, but, like, with Arthur being there, and, like, Gawain, like, immediately just wrote him off before he even, you know, knew anything about him at all.
Yeah.
So they're, like, letting this man-blood girl in there, no problem, but then also she smells funny. Interesting. So a lot of people kind of have, you know, theories that maybe she's a Fae, maybe she's part Fae, something like that. So.
Oh my god, I forgot we called Sister Iris female Ollie. I forgot about that because on TV and Major brought it up. She is kind of female Ollie.
Santi's cracking me up.
Okay to hit again.
I had to mute.
I mean, yeah, like, especially when it's like that kind of craziness. But yeah, like, she's total, like, especially with like that and messing everything up. And also being too big for their bridges, pretty much is what she's kind of doing. And she also wants to be part of the Red Paladin, which as far as we know up to this point, it's exclusively a male thing. Like, there's no sister Red Paladin, so it's like also she's kind of stepping out of that as well. It's like you're too young, and it may not work for you, but who knows? Unless they like unless Father Cardin has this epiphany that all of a sudden the sisters should now just join the Red Paladins, and then it'd be like a religious takeover for all of the nations. But as well, like, go ahead.
They say to her, she's like, what's it gonna take? And they're jokingly saying the head of the Wolfblood Witch, and she takes it seriously, as probably most 11-year-olds would. It's like, when you tell it, like, hey, I pulled this quarter from your ear. How did you do that? And so that's kind of her mentality, though, because at that age, and also, like, I can't recall, like, we don't really get a backstory on her. Is she an orphan?
She tells Squirrel in this episode, or in these episodes, that her father beat her mother to death.
Oh yeah.
And like the nuns took her in or whatever.
So just, think about that. Like let's talk about child abuse and that situation there, because those kinds of things are just installed from her from the beginning, and she saw her father beating her mother all of her life. And then
I think it was when she was first born, actually.
Oh.
Like, because she wasn't a boy.
Oh. Okay, so I guess I'm wrong. But I'm wrong.
Well, she's like a savage little person anyways. She's probably brought up by, like, I can't imagine growing up in a nunnery from the time you're born is, like, an extremely, like, loving environment. There's love, but, like, I don't know, you don't hear like magical stories about kids, orphan children brought up in a nunnery. Like, that's not a common story that we're told. So.
Yeah. You don't hear magical stories most of the time from children who are adopted or are left to be fostered, or a lot of them have really hard lives or abandoned, and they have abandonment issues, and so she's just trying hard to fit in to all that she knows. And then beyond that, if with the fact that her father murdered her mother for not having a boy, what kind of psychopathic issues are those? She might have some mental disorders, installed that make her this way, and it's just, this is really key factor in, hey, your environment really does play a part into what kind of person you're going to be, especially for young children like that.
Well, and another thought I had was that
Santi says no, don't feel sorry for her.
we're psychologically analyzing this poor little psycho, but she, it's interesting that she's brought up in the nunnery by all these women, and they, they don't necessarily treat her bad. We don't see any specific, and Morgana was brought up there too since she was a child, so she's turned out okay. I love her to death, but as far as the nuns are concerned, I'm sure they don't think she turned out very well. But the interesting thing is, when the Red Paladins come in, she has men come in to their abbey where it's all women, and she has a man come in, someone like Father Cardin, and similarly to the Weeping Monk, she's like allured by that, or like lured into, like, she's seduced by like his love and his, like, he doesn't, they don't really show him like offering it too much on the show, but like you kind of just see, like, as soon as a father figure comes into the picture, she wants to do what she can to make him happy, to please him, and to like prove herself to like a father. So there is kind of that interesting like dynamic of like mother versus father kind of thing. And again, like Sister Iris, she's just like another one of these women. Like, all these women in the story are like subverting their expectations. She was brought up as a little nun, and now she's like a psychopathic, murderer,
crazy person.
Yeah.
just a little crazy.
So she's subverting expectations, but
not the proper little girl like she's supposed to be. for her age, raised in the nunnery. But yeah, like the whole Red Paladin storyline is one of like it's very interesting because it separates us from Nimue and Arthur, like this traditional story that we kind of expect. But like in episode 5, we get more of like the friend, because normally Father Cardin is the one that's yelling the orders, but when he arrives in the tent, he's getting yelled at because of like, what are you doing? Like, you're not completing your tasks. Like, what is this? And it's kind of funny that he gets whipped into shape a little bit, because it's normally him delegate all of the orders, or the Weeping Monk to delegate all of the orders as well, which is kind of funny.
The way that there's like it trickles down too, like you see, you know, Father Cardin displaying all this power, and like when he goes to the abbey, and like the nuns are terrified if anything happens to these paladins, they'll kill us, kind of thing. But you know, there's still someone above him that like will like makes him, the second he looks at him, lay down on the floor in like, you know, that submissive position. So he's not the top dog. There's someone above him. There's these Trinity guards, and he has no problem. You know, the Pope he's called Pope Abel in the book. He has no problem. He's like, you know, if you don't handle this, because he basically says you're making the Wolf-Blood Witch into a symbol for these people. You know, she's now their, you know, example. She's beating you, and you're not handling it. So he says, you know, if you don't handle this, then I'll burn you, basically. I'll make you the example, kind of thing. And then, of course, Father Cardin turns right around and takes that out on the Weeping Monk. So it's just this weird, like, dynamic of power, you know, the way power trickles down among them. Because Father Cardin's he's not safe. But so you begin to see kind of the power of Rome too, is another present like power struggle, along with the Vikings, along with Uther, along, you know, with the Paladins. Now we have this other faction, which they're like looming and making sure the Paladins do things correctly. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, just power is power. Exactly.
That old man, power is power. When you're a freaking 90-year-old man covered in like, I don't remember exactly what he's got going on. I don't know if he has leprosy also or something like that, but he's like hanging out in the tub. You're a 90-year-old man. You probably haven't, you know, swung a sword in God knows how long, and you're sitting there making threats. Yeah, power is power, Mackenzie. That's damn right.
Yeah, so it's like, but
one thing I want to point out about that scene that I absolutely love, because I am very much into set design and like, you know, what are they doing? What angles are they giving us? How are they showing this story? Is that he is weak and he's in the tub, and you see that, but then he's like, okay, well, how many numbers? Tell me this. How many this? And then all of a sudden, he like the badass comes out and he stands up and he's like hovering over Father Paladin, and then that's as you're getting him, you know, displaying his power and being like, hey, I'm the one in charge. Like, you see him towering and getting taller and taller, and then you realize, oh man, this is the guy. Like, you don't want to mess with this guy. Like, this is his holiness. Don't play. He's like, we're gonna do whatever we gotta do, and don't make us look weak. And he says, you've turned her. He's blaming him, Father Cardin of the Paladins. He's blaming him for turning her into a symbol. So now he's like, oh, you're calling it the resistance? It's not a resistance. You know, you're making it, don't call it that, because you give it more power in calling it those things.
Yeah, it's one of those big things where it's like, that kind of reminded me a little bit of like how pretty much it's like at the end of, or it's like in the beginning, I think, of season 2 with Thrones, where pretty much it's like Joffrey sitting on the throne, and then Tywin just slowly walks up the stairs and is like giving him a lesson in power, and then just stands and looks over him, and is like, it's like kind of like that thing of just like, you better watch what you're doing, boy, or else I'm gonna come and get you. That's pretty much like how that kind of reminds me of that whole thing. And then the one thing that we kind of missed was the big revelation from episode 5, which kind of leads into episode 6.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, basically, so yeah, they send the letter off to Merlin, and he gets the letter. He sends word back to Yeva. So we got to meet Yeva, which she's a Moonwing sorceress, and her costume was awesome. But
it's
anyway,
on my cosplay list for sure.
Oh my god!
I'm gonna like obviously I wore my Nimue hair today. I'm trying my Nimue looks, but sorry guys, I didn't wear the wet look today. But Yeva, I mean, that's my favorite costume of the whole shebang.
They did such an awesome job, and you know what? I have seen people actually like poo-pooing on that costume. Shut your freaking mouth!
No,
like,
it's awesome.
So cool. I've never seen anything like that. In such a. I mean, again, like they really took the Fae people. They made them very extra. They made them have more of those animal associations. Yes, those are present in the book, but I feel like they really, took it to another level with the show. And the Moonwings were not that extreme, and so I loved, like, it was surprising, like, when she stands up and you see, like, her weird bare chest and, like, just weird, like, crazy feathers and her hair, like, stop it, that was awesome. But anyway, so they...
old lady swag.
Exactly.
So wait, sorcerer,
exactly.
what are we going to call it? Sorcerer swag?
Sorcerer
somebody.
swag. Yep, hashtag
let's see everybody's sorcerer swags on Sayfire. Everything cursed. Come on.
Bring it over to everything cursed. Yep. So she gets the response from her bird, Marguerite. Marguerite deserves a shout out because she's a very skilled bird. And so they do this like druid, like I don't know, mind, like communicate, like what am I trying to say? Like they like do like an astral, almost like an astral connection, where it's the old druid way, and
the in between is how they refer to it.
Yeah. So it's almost, I mean, really, it's kind of almost like astral projecting. Like Nimue's sitting there, she gets sort of in this trance-like state, and which is kind of, helped and induced by Yeva, and the birds, and like the hidden, the hidden is sort of inside it, I guess, and she's transported to the sunken temple, and there she sees Merlin, and he's standing there, and they basically establish that the reason they're there at that specific location is because the in-between chose it because it's a mutual location that they both know. So Merlin's like, how do you know this place? And she said, well, I'm Skyfolk, and this is where my mother died. And so Merlin, thinking back, we know that he saw that Lenore was dead, and he said, oh, you're Lenore's daughter, she gave you the sword. Okay, they kind of put 2 and 2 together, and then Nimue's like, okay, look at me. And they look at each other, and she's like, I know why my mother told me to bring the sword to you, because you're my father. And so, big surprise. So yeah, that was actually done. That scene was done for the show. The whole the like astral projecting kind of thing. They actually do all of that as they did in the in episode 6 when they meet each other. So, but it was still kind of a cool little change up. But yeah, so after that happens, of course she's like, okay, well obviously I have to go and see this guy, and she's doesn't necessarily want to tell all the Fae folk, why she has to go and see him. They're all telling her, don't take the sword to him. He's a traitor to the Fae. He serves man-blood kings. You should not take the sword to him. You know, we need to keep it and protect our people, kind of thing. But she obviously has to go and see him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about the reveal? Were you like, oh?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely weird because usually Nimue is his love interest, so we're gonna see how this plays out as a love interest as a daughter, which is definitely a strong love in itself. So I think it'll be interesting. I also, I upon like my second watch, I actually watched it again this afternoon. And I looked at their faces. I could see like some resemblance in the casting. I think they get, I never thought about it before, but they kind of are looking a little alike. So I like that they pulled this. I don't know if they did, they did that on purpose, but I can see some resemblance. I can make it out.
I could see it too. And honestly, it's kind of like they say she looks so much like Lenore, but honestly, like I think he says you have her eyes or something. But when I was looking at them, I thought they had the same eyes as each other.
Like,
so
yeah,
so they did an okay job. They did all right.
Yeah,
I think the casting is great in general. I like it.
Yeah, it's just picking, especially for like a reveal like that, you can't make it too obvious like in the beginning, but you also can't like then at the same time once the reveal happens, it's something where it's like you also have to make it where it makes sense that that's how it is. And
they did even show that scene with Jonah also. And you could even, I could even say like they did a good job casting Jonah like as a believable father for her because, he's kind of got like a little chubby face like her and stuff. So I can believe that as well. But they do, show that like really heart-wrenching scene of Nimue and like when she's going into the trance state. She has that memory of when her father's leaving and he's like, ask your mother why I'm leaving kind of thing. And
it's in your blood.
Yeah, so
even Diva also says she doesn't smell right. Sorry, Kaci, I'm interrupting you.
No,
yeah,
it's fine.
She's something, she doesn't smell normal, there's something in her blood, we know the whole demon bear thing, so like it just keeps going on, and then you find out, well, Merlin's her father, so like that's what's in her blood. You have like a really powerful druid as a father. That's all.
Yeah, and then like eventually, especially after that reveal happens, then all of those things start to click in your head, like that fact how like what we're talking about, like the fact that she's not liked by her believed father, like at the beginning of the season. All of the other things. The sequence that we see as well when Merlin finds her mother's body and then it's like places it on top. Like it could be believed that that's like her old friend. Like Merlin is like her old friend and it's just like saying goodbye kind of thing. But once of course the reveal from this episode comes, then it makes a lot more sense style-wise why that was so important. And the fact that it's it's her Merlin's daughter rather than like a love interest is, again, it shows another twist in how the show is different than other stories or in Arthurian lore, like, and it will show at least a different perspective of like how him dealing with the fact that he is a father of, so to speak, and who knows, they may throw in like somebody who's a part of Arthurian lore to then be Merlin's love interest, and later on down the season.
Good point. He's had a wife in the past named Gwendolyn. We could get a Vivian character, but I do think the Vivian character kind of went to Lenore. But
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, but I loved that, like, the moment when, like, before Nimue even says, you're my father, and they're, like, having that interaction, and he says, she tells her that Lenore's her mother, and so he knows that that's her, like, that that's his daughter, and he sees it. He like kind of covers his mouth for a second,
like,
he's
no.
like, oh my god, like this is my daughter standing here, like holy crap, how shocking and like crazy would that be to?
Well, didn't he say to her, how do you, and what do you feel? Like, what do you see?
Mm-hmm.
And like he asked her. So I wonder if it was like them just knowing, or I wonder if it was also the powers of the in-between.
Yeah.
It could be something about being in the in-between that gives you kind of the answers, because we get the Kalik and then Celia's ghost being part of the in-between too, right? Later on. So the connection's there. I mean, we'll see what plays out with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and Nimue got some answers there too when just by being brought there, like when he says, "Oh, well, the in-between would have chosen like a different place. This has to be something that's significant to both of us." So of course Nimue gets her hint right then and there too. Like he's been here before. Like why has he been here before? He knows my mother. There's it's just like all the pieces kind of fall together. But yeah.
So you want to talk about Lenore and that's the scene next where Merlin is talking, or in episode 6 where he's talking about how him and Lenore got together and the healing scene, because that's kind of like, it's crucial because you're seeing how Merlin he goes there for help, and she, as a healer, she's introduced to him, and he at that point has been hated, and he's evil and vile, and the power of the sword has corrupted him, and that's when we see that the sword, why he had the giant sword symbol coming out of his chest, and that the sword and all of its agony and angst and the evil of the sword is corrupted him, and his body is just pushing it out through his chest. And this scene was just like, like I felt like pain watching it personally. And you see like Lenore, like what's going on, and she knows that it's this great power beyond what is what the Fae, like she knows that about it. She knows the ancestry of it, and she understands that this is not something that you can just give to anybody. And so after they get it out of him, they have this moment of like, oh, he was corrupted, and I see this other person that no one else saw, and they fall in love. Or I don't know if they fall in love, but it was like a moment.
Well, they have that, So, I love the scene of him, like, or them, like, with her taking, removing the sword. Like, that was just one of those scenes I was just waiting, so hard for, and they definitely did not, like, fail me. I was stoked on how that went out. But, like, the fire and stuff, like, it was just cool. It was just freaking cool. I loved it. And,
So, something that, also, like, after, the reason they fight is not long after, because Merlin realizes that since the sword is out, this power is gone. He has no more powers anymore. And so then he leaves her and he kind of blames Lenore for what she's done and goes. And I think, I also have the other theory that the sword absorbs the power of whatever being it kills or gets inside of. Especially with the Kalik, and we see it later. I think that that's kind of what happens with the widow. And I mean, I don't want to spoil stuff, but later on we see it with the widow. And I think that power is absorbed into whatever user is wielding the sword at that point. So as the power is pulled out of Merlin, that's kind of what sets the scene for his, everything that's going on.
Yeah. He basically loses his power with the sword. Like, it's you have that cool scene of him out in the woods trying to use his magic, and he's trying. You can see he's putting all of his effort into it, and nothing's happening. And he's even trying to like we saw in the beginning of that scene, he like came and busted through all those trees and everything, and then he's like pushing with all of his might on one tree and can't do anything to it. So he goes back and basically demands Lenore, like, what have you done with this kind of thing? And she, she knows that it's like anybody that's got like she hadn't even looked into the sword's history, but she knew that thing was toxic. She knew it needed to be kept away, and that it was powerful. But what do you do? Like, what do you do when you pull a sword out of someone's body cavity like that? Like, it's probably not a good thing. And she made the choice. She told him that she had destroyed it without even knowing like how impactful that could be on any level. And so Merlin, he's like, you've destroyed me, you hateful person, or whatever. And then she looks into the history of the sword and like sees basically what Nimue sees if he's in it. But yeah, it's a powerful scene, and she sends him away after that when she sees like how corrupting the sword can be. And so and Nimue's watching all of this. She's basically they do like kind of a magical thing where she can see his memories, and that's like part of the location that they're at with Festa and Moreii. And she's watching all of this. She sees these really humanizing moments for her mother. That her struggle with her mom was always that she never felt like her mother understood her. She never felt like anyone understood her. And there were things that Lenore could have done to like help her be, more like comfortable with her own self and her own abilities. But she didn't, she chose to not tell Nimue all these things. So she was kind of left in this turmoil all the time. And so if Lenore could have told her those things, things could have been different. But she had her reasons for not telling her too, because Merlin was a fugitive. Merlin, was wanted for dead. What help could it do to, tell your daughter that her father's a fugitive, kind of thing? There's a lot of like things that could have been
gray. There's stuff. It's like a gray area kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, also it's safety issues. Like, as a kid, you're like, my father's Merlin, or one little slip, everyone's gonna come after you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And always the one thing that. Go ahead. It's just the one thing about like a lot of these types of stories or a lot of fantasy things is usually one parent or like the protector of the child or the young adult dies, and then it's like the big secret about who the other parent or the other parental figure usually is. Like it's just funny how that kind of plays out, or
lack of communication.
And it's like, this is like, it's a big secret, and then it's like before they die they're like, oh yeah, by the way, find this person and you'll find out more information. It's just like it's just funny how that goes. Like same thing with like The Witcher, where her grandmother is like Ciri's grandmother is like, go find Geralt of Rivia as she's like dying, and it's like okay, I don't know who that person is, but like I'll go try and start that journey. But yeah, it's just funny how that kind of it's like perpetually represented in a lot of fantasy, which it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. They did do that in The Witcher too. That's kind of funny. They do it in a lot of things. They almost did it like in Thrones, John almost got that, but he didn't. So
it just depends on which perspective you want to look at it that way. For it fit for the TV show, but you never know for the books, because the book could be completely different. Within episode 6, like it's a lot of the whole, like, it's because we're getting to the point in the show where the fact that Merlin and Nimue are together is very important, and it kind of pushes us towards the end of season 1 with the fact that they're already together in some way, shape, or form, and that part of that mission has now been complete with bringing the sword back to Merlin, because that was initially in the first episode, that's all she had to do which to me at least it was kind of surprising that this happened in episode 6. Like you would think that that would be something that this would have probably potentially happened in episode 8, episode 9, which then would lead to a quick wrap up. But the fact that it happened in episode 6 is kind of interesting, and it's like at this point you're left kind of wondering what else is out there besides, of course, the rest of this episode. But with the Red Paladin, because traditionally, like, that's how it would be kind of set out as well. Like the fact that her getting to Merlin would be like one of the last things that the show would show, but that's not how that happened.
Or like if she was more of a damsel, she might have given the sword to him, and then it would be more from his perspective. But they get basically interrupted. Like it was Uther's mother. She sends her little buddy to go spy, and so they follow with some Pendragon soldiers to where they're all meeting. So basically, they have these great so one thing so Nimue ends up, Merlin kind of gets drunk. They bond. They have, their moments. They, do a little magic together. He's like, you can harness your power with your emotions, and she's remembering, thinking of someone she loves to help her, but also he acknowledges the fact that anger is a strong trigger for her as well. But she looks again into the sword's history a little more to find out why her mother, sent him away, and why would she do that. And what she finds, which is, again, in my opinion, like one of the coolest scenes in the whole story, is she goes and she enters a flashback of Merlin's history. And it is when he has the sword. It's basically she wakes up and they're in Rome, and there's a great battle going on. There's druids fighting Romans and like Roman soldiers, but they're also killing women and children and families, and just it's burning, it's chaos and it's war, and there's dead bodies everywhere. And what it pans to is he's called Mirrodin, which is a character that's tied to Merlin. It's supposed to be a younger version of Merlin, and he has the sword, but the sword is fused to his hand. It's been melted, and is part of his arm now, and he's just savagely, like, he's got like rune tattoos and all kinds of crazy, like, furry pants on and stuff, and he's just like a crazy druid warrior, and he's slaughtering women and children, and that's what Lenore saw, and that's what Nimue saw as well. And she's just like, oh my god, she's completely shocked by what she sees. And I love that scene that they have right after that with them like arguing, and he's like, well, that'll happen to you too. Like, she basically comes at him sideways. She's like, how could you do that? There's blood on your hands. There's blood of innocence on your hands. And Nimue's like, or Merlin's like, I was sure that my cause was just as yours. I was fighting the exact same fight that you're fighting right now. It was for the Fae against Rome. And I was sure that my cause was just. But, I've lived many lives, and I've learned that it's not worth it, and that's why I want to destroy the sword. And she's just so infuriated. He says something like, he says, it'll do the same thing to you because you're my kin. And she's like, I wish to the gods I wasn't. And he's like, well, you are. Like,
yeah,
so
it's like, well, you can't change that. Yeah.
I swear, I've had that argument with my father before. And he's yelled at me in that exact same way. But, so yeah, it's, that's a great and really powerful scene, because that's the first time Nimue's, Arthur's mentioned it to her before, and she's starting to have these, like, little moments where she, gets sort of overtaken by the power of the sword, but this is the first time that somebody's laid it down for her and said, this is dangerous, it's not safe to keep, and you need to check yourself. And he's like, here, just give it to me, just let me hand over the burden, my child. he's like, let me just handle this. Daddy, take it. And but right then those Pendragon soldiers come in. Morgana comes in, and she's like, we gotta go. So Nimue feels like she's been betrayed, and they basically book it out of there with the sword. So, yeah.
That was bound to happen. It's just like, no, right before like something like the collective moment's about to happen, it just breaks apart because the Red Paladins show up. Ah, jeez.
Well, yeah, and it's like you said, it was a little too early in the story for her to just hand the sword over, right?
Yeah,
we're only on episode 6. We got
4 more episodes. It's like because there's no way they would fill the back half with just filler. Like, that's not how that works. Like, come on. But yeah, with the Red Paladin obviously showing up to the castle, they run away because they realize that they're being followed. Because of course, when you have Nimue around, she's like the beep, like she has like some sort of tracking device on her, because everywhere she goes, they inevitably show up. Well, it's also because they also have the Weeping Monk, who basically has now her scent pretty much just like within, and he like knows where she is at all times pretty much, which how kind of that goes down as well with Arthur at the end of the episode.
Yeah, that's how they kind of leave us on a cliffhanger. That's such a cool shot at the that very last scene of the episode too, with the arrows. They did a great job with that, with like CGI and like the arrow like spinning through the air. But yeah, it was that they basically leave it so the Fae boys, I guess we'll say, and Arthur, they go to the grain mill. Like, they've run out of food basically at the at Nemo's, and so they have to go. There's only one mill that's left open, and Arthur's super suspicious. He's like, why would they only leave this one mill open? He knows that the Red Paladins are funneling them there, but he's like, well, at least we'll take some warriors and that kind of thing. So they go out there, and they kind of leave us on a cliffhanger with them, because right when they get there, basically the Weeping Monk pops out and he takes out one of their guys, and we're left on that cliffhanger with the arrow coming at Arthur. So yeah,
of course you gotta throw a cliffhanger in once in a while, because it's always been rounded out like nicely enough, so
Well, they kind of did also. Well, I guess no, these are 2 separate episodes. But I was gonna say they did for us doing these 2 episodes. They did a great job of starting it, because we had that like cold open with Umber, and then kind of a cliffhanger ending with Arthur. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's funny how they do that sometimes, and how when we do 2 episodes at a time, which we tend to do on the channel with Netflix shows, because they always tend to bulk together. 2 episodes tend to do well, push together, like with Stranger Things, whenever that show comes back, even though they kind of spoiled the big reveal of the season already. That's why you gotta kind of do that. But yeah, like the fact that they have that and be that way is kind of also, it adds to that, you could say, love triangle tension of like Arthur being put in danger by the Weeping Monk, and then it's like, which side is better, and blah blah blah. Like, it's just funny how they do that, because you also gotta have some fighting with the 2, like with the main men of the show, besides like, because everybody else doesn't know each other really besides Uther and Marlon. It's just funny how that goes.
Well, that's a good point too. There's like that contrast of, while the Weeping Monk is, we know he's like Fae, right? And so like the Fae that's fighting for the Paladins or the Man-Blood army versus like the Man-Blood that's fighting for the Fae army. Like, it's kind of a cool contrast between those 2, although they don't know each other, at this point in time. But for us as viewers, entertaining.
Yeah, because they're like, wait, what? It's like, because by the end you're kind of like, wait a second, what? with how that goes. But yeah, these 2 episodes, I think, were good. Like, they were ones where we get a lot of information, and you get the big reveal, as well as you'd say the fallout of that, like the beginning of the fallout of the reveal, really, because that's kind of what episode 6 really encompasses, is the revelation of episode 5. Peter Griffin has a question, and it says, this is the Stranger Things thing. Oh, Peter, if you just look up, like, Stranger Things, like, season 4 teaser, I think it'll just show up. It's like, it was all over social media, like, when it first came out. It came out, like, last year, I think, or early this year. It's so stupid. I won't say it here, just in case people haven't watched that show yet, but, yeah.
I haven't watched it. I only watch Mackenzie covering Stranger Things.
Yeah, I personally, I was just like, I kind of knew it was going to happen again, and towards the end of last season of Stranger Things, it was a little too much for my personal taste. But
that makes sense.
I mean, I didn't not like it. I just wasn't in love with it personally. But
yeah, it's one of those shows where it can be a bit of a thing, like, it can be kind of slightly polarizing, even though it's not really the correct word. But yeah, if you don't want to be spoiled, Peter, just don't go looking for it, because it's a waste once you know the real ending of that. Anyway. But overall, I think we kind of covered everything. If we missed it, we can always come back to it like next week or whatever.
I was just reviewing like all the notes, and I feel like we've covered a lot, and a lot more than we needed to, actually. But it was great conversation to add in.
There was a lot in these, with the new, like, I think with the Viking storyline being added in, like, there's just a lot, actually. So don't listen to me and what I said at the beginning. It wasn't a filler episode. It was just, like, a lot of stuff.
And I think that's one of the main complaints with this storyline, and why a lot of people are not liking it, because it's a lot of things thrown in and a lot of information, and they're trying to explain and give you the backstory to build for season 2, but the writing was a little rushed in some points. But at the same time, people are, you either love it or you hate it, I feel, at this point. I'm finding people who love it, and, let's stick together and let's keep it going.
I agree. Like, I mean, it's still the first season, and, like, similarly to The Witcher, like, The Witcher was kind of, for people who aren't familiar with the book lore and that kind of thing, it was a lot of information, and, it was a little bit confusing, like, the first few episodes with the timeline differences and stuff. But it's another, like, fantasy world for us to, like, get our, dip our toes into, and really immerse ourselves in. So I think that all of us that are here that, like, watch our channels and stuff, we are all about that kind of immersing ourselves in our fantasy realm kind of thing. So, like, Arthurian's just another one of those, and you just have to, just jump in like anything else. And there's so many versions of it, it can be, like, a little bit intimidating, so it's hard to know. But, like, Cursed is really fun, it's digestible, and, just, I don't think it's too over the top with, like, interpreting the storyline. It's good. If you sit and you watch it, it does a good job of explaining everything. And then if you want to get deeper, then read the book.
I think it's so much fun, and I think we should, like, take it as it is, let it be, and take it as it comes. It's like any relationship you get into. Let's roll with it and see where it goes, and take it as it's presented, and let Frank Miller and Tom Wheeler show us what they want to do with this storyline, because it's fun, and they have a great cast, they have a great crew, the production is phenomenal for what they're doing. We can't. A lot of people want to compare it to other shows, but just let it be itself. It's its own show, and I'm for it. Let's ride. Thank you, Mackenzie, for having us on, and
No
me
problem.
especially. I love this is my first time as your guest, and
No
hopefully
problem. Yeah.
I'll see you more. I
Yeah.
appreciate the invite.
No problem at all. Yeah, it's always nice to kind of have new faces on with us because it's usually we usually get through the same sort of thing. But yeah, this show, it's still it's I'm still trying to figure out exactly what the budget is for this show because usually they do release it, which then also for me and probably for like a lot of people who are critiquing the show and sort of in ways that it can be critiqued in certain ways, like in terms of like set and everything. It's all determined on budget as well. Like The Witcher was like $90 million or something for their first season. Probably a lot of it was taken up by the fact that they had Henry Cavill on the set as the main character. So again, the cursed in some way is more of it's not meant to be in a negative way. It's kind of leaning more towards the more young adult, teenage into adult version of other shows that we like, because you can watch the show as like a teenager and not like have to like, or with younger audiences and not have to like cover their eyes half the time, or there's not too many graphic scenes, barring of course the opening scene of this episode, but at the same time it's still fun and enjoyable, and it's bringing out Arthurian lore, which always is a treat for some people, because I know a lot of people like that genre of fantasy. So while we're here, what do you guys have going on? I know that both of you do something on Fae Fire, so Erin, do you want to talk about that?
Well, I just roll with Erin, and I'm gracious enough that she invited me to be part of her stream. So I help support her, and I help support her page, and Everything Cursed is our group's Facebook page where everyone's talking. So feel free to join us there, but I'll let Erin go into more since it's hers. I'm her support staff. I'll be her pin.
You choose my pin to the most. But yeah, no, we do our stream on Friday. On Friday evenings after trivia, pretty much. That's like the schedule that we're all on, right? So on Friday evenings, Mandy and I do our live stream, and we're talking about the episodes, and we're going to talk about some other stuff too. We're like kind of discussing how we want to do it. We might kind of break it up and do, a character analysis in between episodes or something like that. So we're figuring all that kind of fun stuff out. Yeah. And I'm working on a video. I'm just being I think I'm just being nervous about it because I'm doing a video on the Kaliak. But I'm a little bit nervous, it's about a deity versus like a character. So it's like a little intimidating. But I'm going to get that out to you guys. I think I've got most of it written up now. So hopefully in the next couple of days.
I'm excited because I love that storyline and those characters in this lore. So.
Yeah.
And there's just not a lot of I was looking around for there's just not a lot like a consolidated video or anything like that for I've read some different essays and stuff, so I think having a good just quick reference video for her would be a good thing. Not even necessarily curse specific, but I think that's why I'm intimidated, and I'm just telling you guys because you're all my friends and I can just talk to you.
Well, yeah, you gotta tease the content that's coming up. Come on, you gotta do that.
To be honest with you guys, I'm not that fancy.
Exactly.
And then as for me, I'm working on a Nimue parody, but it will not be coming out anytime soon because I am currently in the process of moving this month.
Yeah.
However, it's in the works, so you can find that and look forward to it on Litbringers. If you don't know, Litbringers is a parody group formed by me and several of the community members for Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. And we just have fun and make parodies and, until they're taken down for whatever reason. But we have, no, just because there's a lot of issues with the music. Like, sometimes they don't care. Sometimes they do put strikes on. But we're working that out still. We're new into the game. We got started just based on Davos Fingers, and he does a March Madness kind of play for the Song of Ice and Fire characters. So it's all started there as fun and jokes, and now we're actually doing it. So we have a YouTube page, but primarily we're on Twitter and Facebook, and we're building our YouTube page now. So that would be at Litbringers, and wherever we're at Litbringers everywhere.
There you go. Yeah, so YouTube is always really crazy with their copyright. Like, it's just insane sometimes. But next week we will be back, same time, same place, to cover episodes 7, Bring Us in Good Ale, and episode 8, The Fae Queen. We'll be talking about that. As for me, everywhere else, I'm just here for now, wrapping up with my college program. It's like I'm done completely at the end of the month, so hopefully after that I'll be able to do more stuff. But for now, this is all because I'm in the middle of writing 2 big papers for my program before I finish, so we'll be doing that. But yeah, go check out Fire, go check out Everything Curse on Facebook, and yeah, go check out Litbringers as well. And we thank you guys, everybody, for joining us today. It was very fun to have this conversation, and we will see you guys very soon for another one. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
And hold on.